Kevin O'Toole here. You have Jeff Linford, Vice Chair, and you have Rick Cotton. Our first question is from bond buyer. Andrew there? Andrew?
Hi. Question is, as far as the LaGuardia Air Train project, I was reading that a big component of the project would would involve the
Kevin O'Toole here. You have Jeff Linford, Vice Chair, and you have Rick Cotton. Our first question.
Can you hear me?
I think we're getting some feedback from someone's phone.
Oh, if everyone else could if everyone but Andrew can mute their phone, that'd be great.
Question is, as far as the LaGuardia Air Train project, I was reading that a big component of the project would involve the Kevin O'Toole here. You have Jeff Linford, Vice Chair.
Yeah, there's obviously a technical problem here.
Can you hear me?
Andrew, just bear with us for a minute, Andrew.
No worries.
If everyone but Andrew can mute their phone, that'd be great.
Question is, as far as the LaGuardia Air Train.
All right, I believe everyone is muted now.
Yeah,
Andrew, let's try that again.
Any other questions, Andrew?
I still hear the background noise, but I'll go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
With the LaGuardia Air Train project is the relocation of the Casey Stengel bus terminal or bus complex is.
All right, I believe everyone is muted
now.
Andrew, let's try that again.
Is that a big part of the overall project? And if yes, has there been discussions with the MTA about whether they would try to fund that part of it?
Of the air train project.
Andrew, could you mute your system now, Andrew, and see if you can just respond? Let's try it. Yeah, right.
All right, I believe everyone is muted now.
Andrew, you're going to have to tell me if you can hear me, but it is the relocation of the bus garage is not part of the project. There is the construction of a maintenance facility here to the garage, and there have been discussions with the
System now, Andrew, and see if you can just respond.
Parking. But any decision with respect to relocating or moving the bus facility would be entirely up to MTA.
I'm sorry.
Andrew, we can't hear you, Andrew.
Has there been any kind of communication with the MTA in terms of, what role they might play in this project? And maybe you can elaborate on that.
Well, our plans for the air train in that vicinity involves a lot of coordination with the MTA, and that has been a matter of significant discussion, but it is certainly not involved as the relocation of the bus facility. It has mostly focused on the coordination of construction related to the air train station being built over the Long Island Railroad Station. It has involved discussion of the renovation of the passerelle, which runs between the number 7 station and the Long Island Railroad Station. That is actually a city facility, but we are coordinating the reconstruction of that. So there have been multiple discussions in terms of coordinating all of the construction activities that will take place it's part of it is over MTA property, but so there's been extensive coordination. It's always been a part of the discussion. It's recited in the draft EIS, but it's coordination. It is not, to my knowledge, it does not involve anything to do with relocation to the extent that the MTA, that's an MTA facility, and I'm actually not familiar with what their plans are for that facility. But there's been extensive coordination in terms of how the construction process and the new facilities would intersect with the MTA facilities at Willets Point. It is not.
Thank you, Andrew.
My knowledge, it does not involve.
Great. Larry Higgs from the Star Ledger. Larry, you're on.
Okay, great. Actually, my question is, Chairman O'Toole mentioned that there will have to be some hard decisions made in the next 3 months due to the COVID-related revenue declines. Can you detail what those decisions might be, if any affect facility operations, if any decisions have been made about the projects that could be put on hold from the capital plan if federal aid doesn't come through, and do some of those decisions include employee furloughs or layoffs?
We're in the middle of reviewing the totality of the of our situation in light of the revenue decline. The end of this year will be intense in terms of reviewing the operating budget. It will be intense in terms of confronting the difficult choices with respect to the capital plan. But we're in the middle of that, and we really have nothing to announce at this time.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Paul Berger, Wall Street Journal.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. This question's for the chairman. I was just wondering, you recently started writing a column for the New Jersey Globe, and which obviously was founded and is run by David Wildstein, who probably did more to damage the port's reputation in the last decade or two than anybody else. I was wondering, what was your thinking behind the decision to go and write for Mr. Wildstein, and do you intend to continue to do so?
Yeah, well, first, I think you have a faulty premise. I'm not writing for Mr. Wildstein, number one, Paul. So just by way, for those who don't know what you're talking about, for the last 3 years, on my own private time, I've written occasionally musings as a legislator, as a former mayor, or public official about anything I felt like writing about. That's something I've done in my personal life, and I'm very proud of it, Paul. So after a period of time, I was asked by a personality who has either ownership or management in the Globe. It was not Mr. Wildstein, by the way, who asked me if I wanted to move my periodic comments or articles to the Globe, and I decided I wanted to do that, and I will continue to do that. So as far as Mr. Wildstein personally, no one has spoken more about what his behavior, his aberrant behavior, other than me. I sat actually on a Bridgegate committee, as you well know, as a senator. I actually wrote a 100-page minority report with 400 footnotes talking about the disgusting display that occurred here, and no one has done more to try to transform this agency, working with Rick Cotton and the commissioners. So I'm going to write where I feel like writing, Paul, and I will tell you it's my First Amendment right to do that, and you can obviously have a First Amendment right to criticize what I say and how I say it.
Oh, yeah, no, of course you have the right to write wherever you want. I was just, the site itself is so closely associated with him, and he is so closely associated with Bridgegate, and I know that you and Rick, since you took over at the port, have really been striving for these higher ideals of the Ports Authority. So I just wondered whether just even the optics of it weren't ideal.
Well, for you, they may not be ideal. Like I said, I chose to write for the Political Insider for 3 years, and I think it's run its course. There are few venues or outlets in New Jersey. Frankly, there's only 2, Insider or the Globe. So after having I don't really want to get into it in the Insider, I just had a creative difference with the editor who didn't want to print some of the things I wanted. So the only other option I had was the Globe, candidly. And I will tell you that the Globe, as you well know, is now, and even Mr. Wildstein, he's actually sponsored 4 congressional debates, and I'm not advocating, I just read in the newspaper. He has a radio show now where he has, whether it's U.S. Senator Menendez on, he has his first speaker, he had Governor Murphy on there last week. He has created a life post-Bridgegate. You can ask him those questions. I have condemned the behavior that he and others have done back in the 2013. And like I said to you, Paul, no one has been more ferocious in the criticism of David Wildstein and others during that disgusting display. And I think my actions as the chair for the last 3 years speak for themselves.
Thank you.
Colleen Wilson from Bergen Record.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask, given the acceleration, it seems, of the LaGuardia AirTrain project, what's going to happen with the Port Authority bus terminal? Those projects were both, as I saw it, on the chopping block potentially for, given the COVID circumstances, and it seems that the Port Authority bus terminal is stalled. Can you comment on that or provide an update? And if you cannot, can you say when there might be an update on where that project stands?
Well, let me take the 2 AirTrain first. What we have said from the beginning of the crisis and for how we're approaching the capital plan, that in terms of projects that are in construction, and the 2 largest ones that are in construction are LaGuardia Airport and Terminal 1 at Newark Airport, that we intended to complete those projects. We regard the 2 AirTrains, LaGuardia AirTrain and the Newark AirTrain, as part of completing those projects focused on 21st century global standards. Access to the airports always ranks at the top of criteria, the top of priorities when customers are asked about what makes a world-class airport. So our commitment is to finish the construction project at LaGuardia. Our commitment is to finish the Terminal 1 and associated facilities construction project, and as part of moving those airports toward 21st century global standards, to finish the AirTrain project. In terms of schedule, the fact is the LaGuardia AirTrain project, like the bus terminal, has been is working through the environmental review process. The LaGuardia AirTrain environmental review is being conducted by the Federal Aviation Administration. It is their schedule, not ours. We are a year and a half almost into that process. We would be delighted to the extent that that gets completed faster, but that is what is setting the schedule, and it has been setting the schedule for the last year and a half. The environmental review process for the bus terminal is a process that is being overseen by the Federal Highway Administration. We are working with them. We are in what they call the pre-planning scoping process. We've gone through an extensive comment period, and we received some very extensive feedback as part of the public comment period and scoping, and we are responding to those comments. And by responding, I don't mean explaining why we're not going to do things. We are taking the comments we've received very seriously, and involve some significant modification of what we had originally planned. And we are getting to the point that we will be able to publish the final scoping document, and at that point, the environmental review process will move to the Federal Highway Administration. So that's really the full situation.
So what is the target date for that final scoping document?
Significantly before the end of this year.
Okay, Colleen, thank you. Moving to the chief leader, Bob Henley. Bob, you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute.
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks so much. I just, if you could, there's been, forgive me, I was monitoring Governor Cuomo. If this was asked, please forgive me. What's the status of the PATH union negotiations? I know it had been a priority of the board to try to resolve these things. Now with the pandemic and the stress that you've been well aware of, is there any way you can ameliorate this by resolving these longstanding issues?
Yeah, hey, Bob, thanks for the question. So just by way of background, so when the executive director and I came on board back in July, August of 17, we were surprised as anybody when we found out that there were 23 collective bargaining agreements that had been long expired. And frankly, those 23 had the range between 6 years and 12 years in terms of their expiration date, which was shocking. I will tell you that, so we were committed day one to make sure that those employees that were working without a contract would have a fair and reasonable contract. We have worked really hard with particular, the executive director and chief counsel and all the senior staff have worked very, very hard to try to see if we can come to some agreement with those collective bargaining agreements. We are happy to report that as of this date, 14 of the 23 collective bargaining unions have resolved their differences, 12 with the Port Authority employees, 2 with PATH. There are 9 to go. Of those 14 unions that have been resolved, they represent 85% of the total union workforce. The 9 to go represent 15% of the workforce. Those individuals, those unions that have agreed with the Port Authority and have reached a mutually beneficial CBA include all the police, Port Authority police, the toll takers, airport workers, skilled trades, administrative employees, conductors, and station personnel at the PATH, among others. So, listen, and as a matter of fact, there's been retro payments that were due to all the 14 recipients of the CBA, the newly agreed upon CBAs, have been fully paid as of July 2020. It is our earnest desire and interest to resolve the remaining 9 disagreements. We do our bargaining, frankly, Bob, at the table, and I think it's in everyone's best interest to get back to the table and try to resolve these differences. We hope to get them resolved as quickly as possible.
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
Sure. To what degree is the background, this is the multi-billion-dollar monster in the room, is any attempt to try to reach these negotiations and move forward impinged by the inability of the majority leader in the Senate and in Washington to come up with what's required to keep things moving forward?
I don't know if they're connected, Bob. I will tell you that we have a great interest here in the Port Authority, here in New York and New Jersey, as opposed to Washington, D.C., to resolve those the 9 unions that go without a contract. And I'm not so sure it's connected to what's happening in D.C. All right, Bob, I appreciate the question, the follow-up. Rick?
I just need, I don't know if Colleen Wilson is still on the phone. I misspoke in terms of the federal agency overseeing the environmental review of the bus station. It's the Federal Transit Administration, not the Federal Highway Administration.
Hey, Bob, for your question, Colleen, I hope you got that follow-up. If you're not there, maybe our staff can follow up with Colleen if she dropped off. Last question from the Daily News. Clayton? Clayton, are you there?
Hey, can you hear? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sorry I came on later covering the governor, but I have 2 questions on the AirTrain project and some of the support that's come out in recent days, particularly from the RPA. I have 2 specific questions. Can you lay out exactly what prohibits you, from an engineering perspective, from extending the N train to LaGuardia, as the RPA said yesterday? And then can you lay out exactly why, in your scoping documents, you believe that a bus service, specifically in Queens, a beefed-up bus service and a bus lane on the highway would be insufficient in comparison to how many passengers it could move to the airport compared to the AirTrain?
I'm going to do this in short compass. and to the extent you want to follow up, we can do that. With respect to the N train, the N train there are two fundamental serious problems with the air train from our point of view. Number one is the enormous amount of heavy construction that would be required in residential areas. From our point of view, it's fundamentally not doable. It has a second problem, which is it runs into an active runway before it gets to the two major terminals at LaGuardia. That's simply not acceptable. So the bus lane, any kind of dedicated bus lane would require that, a dedicated lane. There is not the capability in terms of the neighborhood, and there is certainly not the capability in terms of the roadways on the postage stamp of LaGuardia to accommodate a dedicated bus lane, which would create huge problems for traffic flow at the airport. The FAA identified other problems which we agree by themselves would take that off of the table, but at a fundamental level, that is our view.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for wrapping up, and we'll see everybody. If you have any follow-up, please call our staff. Thank you.